We began last year on the Sunday after Easter with a State of the Church report. How are we doing at Glendale? And it went over really well, and folks were appreciative of being able to hear about some of the things that were going on at the church and some of the ministries and opportunities for outreach. And so we're doing it again this year, and again the following year in 2019. After that, it's someone else's ball game. I don't know whether it will continue or not. But in 2017, and I don't remember whether it was late in the year, but I read that where Mark Zuckerberg, who is the founder and CEO of Facebook, said that it's striking, these were his words, it's striking that for decades, membership in all kinds of groups has declined by as much as 1/4. And he goes on to say that's a lot of people who need to find a sense of purpose and support somewhere else. And you can find that not just in the church, but in civic organizations, all kinds of organizations. And for Zuckerberg, that somewhere else is Facebook, which he sees as a postmodern, post-traditional form of church. His vision of Facebook as a kind of church doesn't rule out God, but it does lift up a kind of community for community's sake. In the Facebook church, who or what is being worshipped? What's the community's purpose? And for goodness sakes, what do all those cat and dog videos that people post every day have to do with any of this?
That would be me.
You're not the only one, Linda. Comparing a virtual church of billions of isolated individuals tapping on keyboards to the real thing will cause most church folks to smile and perhaps even chuckle. But you know what? We have to ask the question. What's the church missing that would allow Zuckerberg and millions of others to want to substitute wading through political rants and vacation selfies for real interaction with a living, breathing, worshiping community? And for the answer, we need to reach back to the church's roots. And there is no better place to do that than by reading the book of Acts. Almost nobody worships, evangelizes, or eats alone in that book. All the interaction is face to face. Face to face. This is what the church does. While Facebook's innovation has had an amazing impact on the world by bringing to the screens faces of friends and family, the church allows us to experience faces. The faces and lives of people in a community of faith, a community in which we act, serve, and work together for the glory of God. From the very beginning of the book, we learn that God, via the Holy Spirit, created this community called the church, not for the purpose of people merely checking one another out, but for introducing people to the good news of what God had done through the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus. The very premise of the community was that God had come in person in Jesus and hadn't settled for sharing a meme or posting a manifesto. Jesus would form real community. A real community of disciples, complete with their own quirks quirks and flaws, and train them how to interact with others in order to bring them into God's kingdom. The Spirit empowered them for this work, and as a result, the community grew by leaps and bounds. Immediately, the community began connecting in person, around tables in their homes, in the temple, and through sharing their goods with one another. The community was a lot more about selfless sacrifice than it was selfless. What we see on someone's Facebook profile is precisely what they want us to see, and no more. Those vacation photos, pictures of the new car, and beautiful selfies are all designed in some way to show everyone else that we're doing quite well, thank you. For some people, the goal is to attract more friends and receive more likes, which can make even the most mature adult begin acting like an insecure, self-obsessed seventh grader. There's even evidence that using Facebook can cause depression in someone who sees the lives of their friends present online as being much better than their own. The church, on the other hand, was designed as a community where people focus on others more than on themselves. It was created as a group that was centered on belief in the God who had saved them because they were all in the same situation. They were all sinners in the need of grace. They had no impression to manage because they were outsiders to their culture. Instead, they were of one heart and soul, completely focused on what God had done for them in Jesus. They modeled their lives after Him voluntarily and sacrificially caring for others to the point of seeing their own personal possessions as being available to everyone else in the community. And coupled with a deep sense of community was a central narrative that drove the church's action and church's mission. And the church was centered on the story of the apostles' testimony that Jesus had risen from the dead, which had enabled them to receive God's grace in its fullness and compelled them to share that good news with the world. That story became the motivating and uniting factor in the church's life and work. And it's indeed what made them a church in the first place. Facebook, on the other hand, has no overreaching narrative other than the collective stories of its users, and no authoritative testimony other than the individual's opinion and worldview. Zuckerberg's vision of community doesn't include a central focus on other than the human's desire for self-elevation, which ultimately leads us back to what the Bible calls sin. It was a need for community that led the early church to be generous with one another. As that God had been generous with His grace in Jesus, so they would be generous with one another, believing their lives were a part of something bigger than themselves. Luke says that there was not a needy person among them, and that the members of the church community sold property and gave the proceeds to the apostles to distribute to those who were in need. That's a lot different from the sort of charity envisioned by Zuckerberg, which involves nothing more than a couple of clicks to make a donation or sharing a supportive emoji or on someone's timeline. the early church's social platform was driven by generosity developed out of a sense of gratitude to God. People gave out of their scarcity so that others would have enough. The early church's social platform, as I said, was a generous platform. Facebook is driven by advertising and gives people the opportunity to maybe give a little that they might have left over after vacation. So how are we doing here at Glendale? Well, we're not perfect. I suppose that's not a surprise to anyone. We are unique. And I forget what the word Donna used this morning when she and Tanya were talking. What was the word you used, Donna? Was it unique? Well, I guess it was unique, the word that she used. She said that's why it's going to be my church in retirement, because it's unique. So let's hear a few brief reports this morning on how